Ciao, benvenuti. I am Liliana Melgar, alumna of the International Master in Digital Library Learning. I am currently a researcher in the field of information science at the University of Amsterdam. I thank Professor Ana Maria Tamaro for inviting me to share my views about digital libraries and reading with you in this MOOC. In this section, I will introduce the concepts of annotating, tagging, bookmarking information, and social reading in digital libraries. Current research is active in trying to understand how reading on paper is different from reading on screens. Also, the fact that there is too much information available on the web is making us go faster in reading, spending most of our time in skimming and scanning rather than on engaging on deep reading. The effect of these changes on learning are not yet well known. To date, most experts have worked to make reading on an e-reader or tablet as close to reading on paper as possible. However, one of the elements that is challenging to emulate is personal annotation. Studies have shown that our reading habits are very tied to writing, and that when we read, we use annotations to help us in interpreting and understanding. Personal annotations have a long historical tradition rooted in scholarly practices of reading and interpretation. Look, for instance, at the similarities between this old example of the so-called marginalia compared to the annotations made by a student in present times using digital technologies. In the same way, the organization of information is now made more flexible through the use of tags and other mechanisms that help us in grouping items or pieces of information by their similar characteristics. Many rigid classification systems were created in the realm of the physical order, as author David Weinberger calls it, because it was impossible to locate the same thing in two places simultaneously. The digital order is essentially different in this respect. Probably most of you are users of online sharing platforms such as Flickr or YouTube. Have you uploaded a photo that you made on Flickr or a video to YouTube? And did you add tags to them? What kind of thoughts did you have when selecting the tags? These tasks of annotating while reading, creating bookmarks, assigning tags, or adding comments to items or content in the web is a way of participation that was not always possible in the web. When the web started, it was mostly static and meant for a reading-only approach. In that period, called the Web 1.0, we were passive consumers of web content, and it was not possible to share either our own content online. Around 2005, a kind of revolution occurred in the world of information when users were offered the possibility of adding tags to web pages. One of the first web services doing this was Delicious. These services allowed users to interact with web resources by bookmarking them and adding tags to organize them. Look, for example, at the library teen example introduced in the video about metadata by Getane Alemu in the same lesson of the MOOC. This phenomenon of user-generated content is the main characteristic of the so-called Web 2.0 or social web, which has grown enormously in the past years, moving the focus from the curators and indexing experts to content creators and consumers. The idea that consumers will also become producers is not new. Since the 70s of the last century, writers such as Marcian McLuhan or Alvin Toffler, who coined the term prosumers in 1980, observed that these roles were becoming blurred in different spheres of our social life. In terms of information organization and digital libraries, the age of the prosumers is leading to a new kind of curatorship which is broader and participatory. Enabling user participation in the metadata creation process is a necessary approach in our digital library systems nowadays, since they are part of the social web, an online environment in which everyone is empowered to create content or add tags or comments to this content or to share with others, as we do every day through online social networks such as Facebook or Twitter. There are basically two ways of enabling user participation in this collaborative annotation process in your digital library. One of them is to select which items in your collection need user annotations, for instance, if there is missing metadata. Think, for example, of Flickr Commons, an initiative in which many institutions upload their photo collections to Flickr in order to obtain more metadata from the users' comments. Later on, the library has to arrange mechanisms to incorporate this metadata into their systems. Another option is to build a digital library as a system for social reading. In this approach, everyone who is engaged with your digital library can add items and social annotations to them. You can have different levels of moderation in this case. For instance, a student in your course might add tags to an item. The designer of the digital library can decide whether there is a separate field for user-contributed tags, which are invisible to other users until they are approved, or they can also become immediately visible for other students and together curate these tags. There could be several types of tags that are requested to students. For instance, if a digital library is used as a resource deposit, as it was explained in Lesson 4, Unit 1, students and teachers could make use of tags in those platforms that allow the organization of the resources, for example, in a Zotero or a Mendeley group library. It is possible then to enable semi-supervised user annotations and collectively organize the library's content through these annotations. You can also add guidelines in your digital library for tagging and commenting, so this process is not left totally free to the participants. You can also add a workflow to the tagging or annotation process by using guided tagging and moderation. Look at your paintings project, where participants are shown in the upper menu which categories are they supposed to tag in the paintings. The readers in the digital library could also be allowed to use personal annotations as commenting, highlighting specific parts of a text, or adding bookmarks. The teacher or designer of the digital library could be creative in enabling these possibilities and engaging with the students in a dialogue through these annotations to be sure that students are understanding the text and collectively construct the meaning. The readers should also be free to select the option of sharing or not these personal annotations. In current digital library systems, all different kinds of annotations coexist. Professional annotations, user-generated annotations, and also automatic annotations. For some of you might be familiar with word clouds, which are mostly created automatically by extracting the most frequently used words in a text. In domains or sectors where information control is highly important, this way of opening up the curation to everyone also creates problems, which are associated to the metadata quality control mechanisms. However, in the fields of education and humanities, social annotations bring important advantages to digital libraries, students, and scholars. Enabling user participation in the annotation process is a positive way of engaging users with the collections, also a way of obtaining more metadata to enrich their collections, but mostly it is a mechanism to facilitate the collective construction of meaning and understanding through social reading.